Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Fontana. I'm Director of Research and Education for the Ohio Soybean Council, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us today. The Ohio Soybean Council is excited for the opportunity to partner with the Ohio Department of Education to bring to you the Feed and Fuel Your Future virtual learning series. Through our education program, Grow Next Gen, we provide opportunities for teachers and students to connect science and agriculture in the classroom. Our farmers, a number of years ago, decided that it was important for this connection to be made between students and teachers in the state of Ohio. And what better way to uh, have students learn about agriculture and its importance to the state of Ohio than through their teachers. A secondary, but just as important reason for starting Grow Next Gen was to let students and teachers find out about career opportunities in Ohio's number one industry, agriculture. So today we are going to do a virtual tour of the Cargill processing plant, soybean processing plant in Sydney, Ohio. We're anxious to bring this to you and show you many things, new things, hopefully, about soybeans and how important they are to agriculture, to the Ohio economy. And we think you'll enjoy your tour today. With that, I will turn it over to Andrea from Cargill. Enjoy the tour.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome to Cargill and Sydney. Really happy to have you here with us today. It is a beautiful harvest day. Unfortunately, don't really have a lot of bean trucks coming in yet. Harvest weather has been a little spotty with rain, so things are getting started a little bit slowly. But we are going to try to walk you through the process of what we do with the soybean when it comes to our plant here in Sydney. We have what we consider three businesses here. And our first business is the crush business, which we're going to talk about first, and you're going to see some of that. We'll start with bean trucks coming through and what happens in the crush plant with those beans. And then we'll go over to the refinery, which is our second business. And then we'll hit the food service business and our packaging business last. The crush plant itself was built in 1978. And then we added the refinery business in 1988. After that time, we decided we wanted to get into some more finished product type of businesses with soybean oil. So we added the packaging business in 1993. We added actually a dressing, sauces, mayonnaise plant in 2000. Now, we don't have that business anymore, but what it allowed us to do was go straight to restaurants, straight to grocery stores, and so forth with those types of products. And then in 2014, we decided we wanted to do a little bit different business with our packaging side, and we added a bottling business. And those are going to be bottles that you are going to see right in the grocery store. And we, at the same time, we also added a automated warehouse. That is state of the art. There is nobody else in the United States who has anything like that. So that is very unique to what we do here. And now what we're in the process of doing is getting ready. We're going to see our original crush plant. And then in 2023, we're actually going to build a brand new crush plant here. It'll be bigger. It'll be better. It'll be fantastic. We're looking forward to it. But let's go ahead and we'll get started. We're going to go over and we're going to show you where we actually have our bean trucks come in first. Now, unfortunately, we don't have one here right now, but we do have some video that we can show you of what we do here in this building. What we try to do before we dump any soybeans is we want to take a sample of them. We want to make sure what is the moisture, what's the test weight. We want to check all the quality aspects of it to make sure it's good quality before we dump it. So here, what our graders will do is they'll stick a probe down into the truck, and what you're going to see then is they're going to pull that sample out. They're going to test all of that, just make sure it's exactly what we want it to be. Then when we dump it, or after we're done probing, we're going to take that truck over to the dump. And I think you probably are getting to see some video of how the team goes about probing those trucks. We dump here bean trucks 5 days a week typically. Outside of harvest, we're going to dump trucks Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we do dump all year long. This is the time of year as harvest gets ramped up that this will be our busiest time of the year, and we'll extend our hours. We'll dump 7 days a week. We'll be dumping our kind of record numbers in the fall is typically what we expect. Don't expect it to be any different this year. We should have a fairly big crop in the state. Right now, I'm anticipating around 267 million bushels to be grown in the state of Ohio. That makes us number 6 in the U.S. When you look across the Corn Belt, Ohio is the 6th largest producer of soybeans in the U.S. Now, that crop size is going to be a little bit bigger than what it was last year. We had a spring wet problem last year, so yields were down a little bit, but this year we've had some really nice weather, should have some really big crops. Around Sydney, we are going to buy bushels from about a 50-mile radius into the facility. So we will buy a lot of producer customer bushels. We buy bushels from commercial elevators. Really, anybody in the area who grows bushels, we're going to buy into the facility. We are a 100% truck. And what I mean by that is some elevators or some processors will buy bushels from farmers and elevators that come in only on trucks, and that's what we do here. We've got some of our facilities or other facilities that will buy bushels, say from North Dakota or Wisconsin or Minnesota, and they load them on rail cars and they bring them to the state of Ohio and we dump them. Fortunately, our production size is so big here, we don't need to do that. So everything we do is on truck. And like I said, for the most part, comes from about a 50-mile radius through Sydney. Yeah, I think we've got some video here. We'll show you a little bit about what harvest looks like in the area. And Tom's going to talk a little bit about some other programs that NextGen has.
This shows harvesting out in the field, harvesting of soybeans with the combine. And I'd like to mention that next week on Tuesday, you will have the opportunity to, through this program with the Ohio Department of Education, see soybean harvest from the field, hopefully if it's not raining, and go through lots of information about how soybeans are harvested and processed and so forth. That will be for middle and high school students. On Thursday, we will have an elementary harvest tour for elementary students in classrooms. So I just wanted to remind you of that. So harvest is in full swing right now in Ohio, as Andrea said, and we should have a pretty strong harvest this year. So with that, I will turn it back over to Andrea.
All right. So we've been walking over to our soybean dump. And again, unfortunately, we don't really have any trucks right now. But we want to be able to show you the dump facility and our storage facilities and so forth. So here behind us, you can see those concrete space. That's our what we consider our short-term storage. As trucks are dumped, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put those beans into that short-term storage typically, and then that's what's going to go straight into the crush plant. We do also have some longer-term space, some big steel tanks, and as we start dumping more bushels than we need in a day, we'll start putting some of the bushels in that. Now, not everybody hauls bushels in the fall. A lot of customers, a lot of our farmer customers have their own on-farm storage. Those who don't will bring bushels to us in the fall. Those who do will put it in their own storage space, and then they'll bring it to us later. Now, I think we've got some video where you can see the trucks being dumped. And you can see some grain bins here that we've got where different people store bushels. But for us, we are going to buy beans 12 months out of the year. We do not have enough space at our facility in order to run the crush plant the entire 12 months. So these bushels that are coming in every day will either go into our long-term space or they'll go right into our crush plants. We are what is considered a fully integrated plant. We dump raw soybeans, run them through our crush plant, take them over to our soybean oil refinery, refine that crude soybean oil. Then we'll either send some of this soybean oil out on tanker cars or tanker rail cars, and some of it will go to our food service plant into our packaging products that we talked about and we'll be able to touch on. So before we are able to go down that path, we need to go through the prep business, the extraction facility where we can extract our oil. So what we're going to do in crush is we're going to take that soybean, we're going to break it down into its three parts. The soybean hulls, which is kind of the shell of the bean, the soybean meat, which is our soybean protein, and then soybean oil. And that's what we'll do in crush. We've got some video that'll show you what happens in the actual crush plant.
Andrea, real
When we,
quick,
yeah,
there's a question. How many different farmer customers do you have at Sydney? Would you
yeah,
get?
I talk to a lot of people. Honestly, I always count right around 2,200 people. And I should say that in a little different way. 2,200 accounts. We have
Okay.
some farmers who own their own ground and they sell those bushels that they own off that ground. And we have farmers that will rent acres from other retired farmers, retired families, or whatnot, where they'll deliver bushels on behalf of that owner. So 2,200 accounts. I would say I probably talked to, over the course of a year, 1,800 people. It's a lot of customers that we deal with here. And some of those customers might only deliver 1 or 2 loads a year. Other customers might deliver 100 loads a year. It just depends on how big their farm is. So in our crush plant, what we're going to do with those beans, everything that we dump is going to go through a cleaning system and also the dryer. And the reason we want to do that is because when we go into prep, which you're going to see here, we're going to put those beans down through a series of cracking rolls. And those rollers have little edges on them. And what it does is it takes those beans and it breaks it down into 6 or 7 or 8 different pieces. And the whole reason we want to do that is it'll allow us to separate the soybean hull, that bean shell, away from what we call the bean meat. We're going to aspirate and pull the hulls off. Those bean meats then are going to go back into prep and they're going to go through a series of roller mills. Now, soybeans are hard. If you would have one in your hand and try to squeeze it, you can't. We're going to warm those bean meats up first. Then we're going to put them down through these rollers. And here, these rollers are smooth. What we produce is what we call a flake. That flake then, by putting it through the roller, it exposes more of that oil cell. Therefore, when we go into the next step, into extraction, those bean flakes you're going to see are going to ride on a conveyor system. On that conveyor, we're going to wash hexane down over top. The hexane will grab that oil cell that's in the bean meat and it's going to pull it out. And you can kind of see on the bottom of that picture that hexane and oil mixture is coming to the bottom and the bean meats are staying on the conveyor. We'll put it through a series of washes and pull out around 99.5% of the oil. So we get almost all of it out in this extraction process. From there, then those bean meats are going to go through a set of they're going to go through a desolvatizer toaster first. What we want to do is we want to get out the rest of the moisture, any of the hexane. We want to cook that bean meat. By cooking it, what we've done is we've made it palatable for certain livestock. Without doing that cooking piece, then there's certain livestock that can't digest soybeans. So what we'll do is we'll put it through that DT. Then we'll go through what we call a dryer cooler, take out the heat, cool it down, put it through a set of hammer mills, and then we're going to bring it over here where you're going to see it into our meal loadout facility. What we've done now is we've separated our 3 products. Our soybean hulls are separate. They're actually in one of these tanks that you're seeing right here. The soybean meal is also going into a tank beside it. So we can load those 2 products out on trucks right at this loadout facility that we're at. We can also load out on rail cars, depending on what customer we're servicing at that moment in time. Soybean oil is still in the extraction building right now. So we're going to kind of leave that for now. We're going to talk about soybean meal and soybean hulls.
Real quick, Andrea,
Yeah,
how many truckloads of soybeans can you receive in a day?
yeah. I'll tell you, how many can we receive? We have the capacity to dump about 25 trucks an hour, and we typically run 10 hours a day. So when you think about that math, it would say 250 trucks a day. We don't tend to dump 250 trucks every day of the year. Um, Certain times of the year you will. In the fall, we absolutely do. In the winter, we do. But then there's a lot of times where guys either are going to kind of wait to see if the market's going to get better, don't need to haul right now, or busy doing something else. So it just depends in that respect. The new crush plant we're building is going to have the capacity to dump 60 trucks an hour. So super excited to see how that all works when we get the new plant built.
Yep.
Here at Soybean Meal, good.
Another quick question. Are the soybeans genetically modified?
Yeah, non-GMO and GMO. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. What kind of
Okay.
soybeans do you take in there at Sydney?
Yeah, we are what is considered a commodity crush plant. We'll buy any type of soybean. We do not run any what they call specialty programs. Over 90% of the corn and beans grown in the US are a GMO type of grain. And that might be for diseases, it might be for weeds, it might be for insects. Um, for us, a bean is a bean. We don't pay anything different regardless of what type you deliver. But the opportunity with GMO crops is a healthier crop, a healthier plant, hopefully less type of pesticides, herbicides, chemicals that you need to use on it, and at the end of the day, a higher yield. And we need that higher yield for the growing population that we have in the world. So for us, we're commodity. When we look at who we service, we're servicing mostly domestic customers, both from an oil perspective and a soybean meal and soybean hull perspective. Therefore, we don't necessarily do anything non-GMO out of this site. Now, Cargill does run those types of programs at other facilities, just not here in Sydney. So I'll cut back to meal loadout. Here you can see a truck getting loaded. You can see it gets a little dusty here, but what he'll typically do, the loaders will usually start loading the truck from the front, and as they get it loaded toward the front, they'll start building to the back. And the idea is they want to try to keep it as even as they can in the truck. They want to make sure they have the majority of the weight over the wheel over the axles. But they want to make sure it's spread out. Otherwise, if you get an uneven load, it just makes it difficult and dangerous for the driver as he's taking it wherever he needs to go with it. We load anywhere from around, I don't know, it depends on the day, but the majority of our loading gets done during the week. We're going to load around 275 soybean meal trucks a week here on this bay. We also will load out soybean hulls here. Now, we don't have as high a yield on hulls. We're only going to load 40 or 50 trucks a week of soybean hulls, so you just don't produce as much of a hull product as you do soybean meal. Soybean meal is a high protein product. It's used primarily in livestock feeds. Here, we have customers that are buying for livestock. We have customers that are buying for pet food. You can use it for human, but for us, where we sit, we're primarily going into livestock. You're also going to see a video here showing one of our soybean meal customers. We actually sell soybean meal to, and what he's showing, or what we want to show here, is his kids that are getting the hogs ready to show at the county fair. This is a young pig. What he's doing is he's teaching the pig to go where he wants him to, because part of showing a hog at the county fair is that you are able to control, that you're able to get it to move where you want it to move, that it's well conditioned, that it will take responses from you or respond versus to what you ask it to do. But I'm laughing. It's a cute little pig. So I'm sitting here laughing here. Sorry, but it's really nice because we're able to buy beans from the same customers that we're selling soybean meal to in a lot of cases, and that makes it a lot of fun because then you can really talk to the customer about the whole gamut of what we do here.
Andrea, quick
Yeah.
question, if I may. How many pounds of soybeans come through in a day? So I did a quick
Okay.
calculation. I did 80,000 pounds per truck. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's accurate,
Yeah. Well,
but
that'd be the gross. That's not the net.
yeah.
So,
So
okay, so think by and large, let's kind of do it this way. How about I answer you this way? Um, we need to dump around 100 trucks per day to run the crush facility. Now, like I said, there are some days we might dump 250. There's other days we might dump 50. So over the course of the year, my job, I buy beans for the facility. So my job is to make sure we have beans in the plant when we need them to run the crush plant. And as I said, certain customers want to haul sometimes for certain reasons and others don't. So having on-farm storage is really important for me because next February I'm going to still need to buy beans and it's not harvest anymore. So planting takes place in March, April, May, kind of late March when it starts warming up, April, May, and then harvest is primarily late September through October for soybeans. And then corn will get started too. We're seeing some corn get harvested here around the same time. So corn and beans get planted in the spring, harvest here in the fall. So throughout the year, I need people to store bushels. So in the spring and summer and so forth, I can buy those from them. A soybean, a, a bushel of soybeans weighs 60 pounds. Um, a 60-pound bushel of beans yields around 44, 45 pounds of soybean meal, the protein piece of what we do. It produces around 11 pounds of soybean oil, and then you'll have a couple bushels or a couple pounds for the soybean hulls, and then you're always going to have a little moisture, some things like that that make up kind of that balance. So we talk about this being a crush business, and we talk about soybeans being an oil seed crop, but it is primarily a protein product. And as we look at soybeans around the U.S., back in, I don't know, 2018 was the largest year that we planted soybeans. I mean, we planted near on 90 million acres in the U.S. Now this year it's going to be back to somewhere around, I don't know, 82 or so million acres in the U.S. But overall, the growing demand for beans is more around protein than it is for oil. So a little bit different than what it feels like when we talk about being a crush plant and an oilseed crop. But protein is a huge piece of what we do. So now we've basically finished the crush side of the business. What we're going to do is we're going to enter in really on the refinery. So I mentioned that in extraction, we still have that hexane and oil mixture in the bottom of the extractor. Over here, we've got our refinery. So in extraction, what we're going to do is we're going to take that hexane and oil mixture, we're going to put it through a distillation process, and we're going to evaporate the hexane off, recapture it, turn it back into a liquid, and start it all over again. But the oil, the crude soybean oil, then is going to come over to the refinery. And for us, our refinery is actually bigger than our crush plant. So we bring in, you can see some rail cars over here to our right. We bring in crude soybean oil from other Cargill crush facilities. We'll bring the oil from our own crush plant, and we'll bring some in from our own crush plants in other states as well to run the refinery. The refinery also brings in corn, cotton, peanut, canola, and some palm oils, because as we move out into food service and into the packaging business, we're going to combine all of these to make products. But here in the refinery, a big chunk of what we do here does go out to our packaging business here by the time all is said and done. We do have some specialty products we do. This loadout bay here is specifically built for oil that's going to go into the candle wax business. We've got a couple products that we sell for that. Here in this loadout area that you can see right here, we're going to send out bulk products that's going to go to maybe crackers and candy and bread, places like, or customers like that who are going to make their own products. The oil that we're going to send over into packaging then is going to be a little different. But let's talk a little bit about what the oil is going to do as we come into the refinery. We've got a couple videos to show you there.
Andrea,
real
quick, how many people work at your facility?
Yeah, so here at when you look at the entire site, it's around 270 Cargill employees. But the one thing too, and I don't know if you really had the opportunity to see them too much, but you'll see people kind of walking back and forth and here and there. We have a lot of contractors or other companies who are on site doing jobs for us, and they might be here every day of their working career. So on site at any particular time, it is a 24-hour a day operation, but through the day obviously you'll have the largest population. So honestly, I think at any given day we can assume that there's somewhere around 300, maybe 325 people on site during the day, be it customers, suppliers, contractors, employees. So a big campus, really.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we'll talk a little bit then about what we do in the refinery. When we bring this crude soybean oil over, the first thing we want to do is get rid of the gums. When you see crude soybean oil, there's a really gummy, nasty substance in it. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it through the centrifuge. And because it's heavy, you can put it in that centrifuge and you can spin it, add a little caustic solution to it, help do that separation in that spin. Then you can just pull those gums off. Now the gums are going to go, they can either go to other businesses that are going to use them for a binding agent, they're going to use them for a dust suppressant, really kind of, it has multiple uses. The rest of the oil then is going to go into the next piece, which is the filtration piece. And when beans are grown, pretty much as you see water come up into the plant, it's going to collect things from the soil and so forth, and it's going to deposit in the oil. We're going to mix the oil with a white clay, put it through that filtration process because that clay is going to grab a hold of all those foreign substances. Then we're going to filter it off. The oil then, the rest of the oil then is going to then go to deodorization. And honestly, all we do here is cook it. We're going to boil it up to like 625 degrees. And what that does is it inactivates the rest of the colors. And if there's still any flavor, anything else that's in it, because our goal coming out of this building is to have a neutral product. No smell, no color, no taste. By neutralizing the oil, then, as we sell it to customers, maybe they're going to take it and put it in Oreos. They can put whatever flavoring, whatever color, whatever they want it to be, they can do that with that oil then. The oil that doesn't go out to our bulk customers then, maybe to the people who are making the townhouse crackers, who are making the salad dressings or the Miracle Whip. If it doesn't go to that type of customer, then we're going to send it to packaging. Now, I'm talking a lot about food, and I mentioned we do have some oil that goes to candle wax, but we will sell some oil then that will go to the biodiesel industry. But when we look at where we sit in Ohio, we're within a day's driving distance of around 80% of the U.S. population. It's awful hard for us sitting where we sit to not concentrate on that food business. Now, we have a lot of our other plants. We have 10 crush plants in the U.S., and some of those other plants do concentrate more on some of the industrial pieces. Now, I'm not saying we don't sell any to ink or to adhesives or things like that, because we do somewhat, but by and large, we are a food plant here in Sydney.
Okay.
staying with that theme, then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about packaging and what we do there. And I had mentioned before that at one time we had a dressing, sauces, mayonnaise business as well, but we did forego that business because we wanted to concentrate on packaging. That is a business that we do very well, and we really felt that we could service our customers a lot better by concentrating on that piece. So when we start looking at packaging, we have a few main products from our actual original packaging business. When we first started packaging, we stuck with pretty much jibs, putting bush oil into 35 gallon jugs in a box. But we have since kind of broadened that expanse a little bit. And I don't know if you want to go ahead and show the bottling. There we go. There you go. There are the jibs. 35 gallon, these are 35 gallon jug in a box, or what we call jibs. And this is a big part of what we do out in packaging. And you can see these when you go to Sam's or Gordon Food Service or so forth, but a lot of it will go to distributors who are then going to take it to a hotel, a school, a restaurant, somewhere that they're going to use in their actual facility to make food. Some of it will go to an end user, like those folks that make crackers or candy or something like that. And the size is really a function of what fits in their mixing bowl. They don't have to measure. They know exactly what it is. They just pour it in. Or it fits in their fryer. They don't have to worry about it. They pour it all in. So sizes and packaging are really kind of based around those recipes and what they need for their equipment. The next thing that we do is we do still do a little bit of a cube, a shortening product, and we do a bib. So let's talk a little bit about the bib. The bib is actually a 17.5-pound bag in a box. Now, both of those products, the jibs and the bibs, are a liquid product. We do a little bit of hydrogenation, though, for some of those. And yeah, what we do with hydrogenation is, if someone wants a little bit of a hydro product, hydrogenation in the refinery, what we do is we take hydrogen gas, we inject it in the bottom of an oil tank. The more hydrogen you put in, the more hard the oil becomes, the more of a shortening type of product. Now, the thing about hydrogenation is soybeans are a no trans fat oil. There's no trans fat in soybean oil. But when you hydrogenate it, like you're seeing with this cube that's being filled, you're making it a hard fat, you're making it a trans fat. So we don't do as many of those cubes as what you're seeing in that picture as what we used to, a 50-pound cube of shortening, but we do still have some customers who ask for it. The big new part of our business is this bottling line. And what we're doing there is we're filling the quart bottles that you're going to see in the grocery store. So when I talk about being integrated, we go completely from the field all the way to your table with product. And we're only one of two of Cargill's businesses in the U.S. that does that. We've got another facility like this in Gainesville, Georgia. And this one by far, though, is the biggest. We're the biggest facility that we've got here. I've got to run into the building. So Tom, do you have another question for me?
I have several.
Okay.
You, in the silos that you showed earlier, grain bins, how many pounds of beans would be in one of those big storage units?
You know, honestly, it can vary. For us, the storage facilities that we have here on the plant, our concrete tanks will hold 30,000 bushels. So if you want to convert it to pounds, it'd be 30,000 times that 60 that we talked about before.
Okay. And how many of those, what kind of capacity do you have?
We can store right around 3 million bushels here at the site. So when you think about how many we use in a day, we have the ability to store, almost 2 months worth. But as I said, farmers don't necessarily deliver beans every day, right?
Right.
So we need to have that extra space in order to have bushels to process when people aren't delivering. So we went
Let's
ahead
see.
and,
How many
yeah.
acres does the plant sit on? The whole
Ooh,
facility?
yeah. People ask me that and I can't ever remember. It runs my mind, it's 27 acres.
Okay.
And we have utilized every piece of it. So here you can see actually through this window, you can kind of see some empty space. As we have moved around our dressing sauces business, we've made some space out here in packaging, but we do intend to, when you look at these bottles we are producing now, this is our future. We're going to end up adding more lines to do different sizes of these bottles as we go. This this is the jug in the box that we talked about, but this is where the biggest part of our volume is going now. So space like this that we've got available now will be used as we increase the number of bottles that we're doing every day
Okay.
and the new lines we put in.
Um, another question. If part of a line breaks down, does that shut the whole facility down?
That's a really interesting question. So it depends on where you are in the plant. In the crush plant, if a part goes down, depending on where it is in the crush plant, it probably will take the rest of the crush plant down. It doesn't affect the refinery. It doesn't affect the packaging plant. In the refinery, same thing. If a piece of the refinery goes down, then probably it's going to take the refinery down. Out here in packaging, it honestly depends on which line it's on, because when you look at our traditional lines, the jib, the bib, the cube, it probably will take the rest of that specific line down. But our bottling lines are just fantastic because they have built those out that they could, and again, a lot of times our problems are just minor, tiny things that somebody just needs to jump in and turn a switch or pick up something or put it somewhere. So they have those lines built that it could be down. Maybe this spot is down for 30 seconds or a minute and the rest of the line keeps running. So it just really depends on which one you're talking about. But the engineering that it takes out here is just amazing. Every day I wonder how somebody was smart enough to figure some of that out.
Sure. How's COVID affected things?
Yeah, I'll tell you, when it first happened back in March and April, we had concerns how it was going to affect our oil business, mostly because again, it's food, it's restaurant and so forth. And we did see a decrease that was leaving the packaging building because of that. But when you look across the US, because Cargill has so many facilities, we were able to kind of work together to keep everybody running, maybe not 100%, but to keep running so we didn't have to shut anybody down. And honestly, it didn't take very long and we had everybody back because basically what happens was a shuffling. We just increased capacity here, decreased capacity there. And at the end of the day, we're running higher than we were before the whole thing started in March
Okay.
in the refinery and the packaging plant. So, and then from a soybean meal and soybean hulls perspective, we fortunately didn't really miss a beat, which is interesting considering what happened in the meat business. But we were able to continue to run this facility pretty much at the levels we intended to run it before everything happened. It just was one of those things that maybe customers, especially the chicken customers or the hog customers and so forth, maybe had to slow down deliveries a little bit, but then they picked it right back up.
Another question. Do you deal with the United States Department of Agriculture in any way?
Well, personally, me, no. But we as Cargill do export commodity. We're one of the largest exporters in the world for grains. Now, I personally don't. We don't really do a lot of export out of this site. We do a little bit of oil, but mostly domestic product here. So we do have people who do. I just don't personally do that.
Yep. And to jump in real quick, as far as there was a question submitted beforehand about trade. Up until the last couple years, China has received 60% of all the soybeans grown in the US due to tariffs and COVID and other things that went down. Now, recently, China is buying a lot more soybeans from the US, but they buy from South America as well. Um, as far as other customers, this has allowed the US soybean industry to go out and look for other customers. We've been selling more to Europe, for example, than we used to. Other places in Asia, India is a potential large market. We have big customers in Canada and Mexico. So we have a wide variety of customers, but China not buying for a while definitely hurt things. So
But we're
that's
seeing
the
a big
answer.
resurgence now, right?
Yeah, big resurgence now, and hopefully it keeps up. That's why the price has been going higher lately.
Yeah.
So another question, and I know we have some more things to cover, but real quick, quality assurance. Do you have labs, and how do you test your products?
Yeah, everything gets tested. So it kind of depends on what area you're in and what we do. But from a crush perspective, we kind of talk a little bit about that. As we run, and pretty much all the lines, crush, refinery, packaging, every line we run, about every hour, we take samples of products just because we want to make sure what's the moisture, what are ingredients getting skewed, things like that. So about every hour, we take our own samples for ourselves. When it comes to our customers, all of the products we retain samples for them. So as we load soybean oil, or excuse me, let me start with soybean meal. As we load soybean meal at the load out facility, there are some truckers who actually will jump out of the truck, run upstairs, grab a sample, and take it back to their customer so that it can be tested there as well. Some of those customers we actually retain the sample ourselves and we'll send it off to an independent lab and let them test the moisture, the fiber, the protein piece, because it's real important that we maintain the right quality in those feed rations that customers are doing. In the refinery, same thing. We have certain customers that we have kind of a basic set of things that we test for, and same in packaging, basic things. Then every customer might have something different that they want us to test for. So we definitely have a lot of labs. I think there's 3 labs out here. There's a great big one in the refinery. And then from a lab perspective for crush, we just need to be able to run the protein, moisture, fiber. So we kind of have a little room where our operators take care of that locally, as well as what we send off to independent labs to test. So
Okay.
lots of lab jobs.
Yeah, why don't we skip to careers real quick if we can?
Yep. Yep. One last thing I want to focus on here out in packaging. One thing that is unique to us too is we blow our own bottles. So this bottle right here comes from this. We buy these plugs from Plastipack in Jackson Center, and we blow it into this. And what we've been able to do is we talk about, we have about 27 acres here, and we use every bit of that real estate. Our problem is we're running out of real estate for this facility. So by blowing our own bottles, we can reduce our footprint a little bit and be able to bring these small things in rather than trying to store those empty bottles that we do, it's just fabulous. And that's unique to us as well. So a couple different things. The warehouse that we built is state of the art. Nobody else in the US has something like that. It has allowed us to be more efficient in the way that we load trucks, more efficient in the way we deliver supplies to the lines in packaging, and it's made it safer. It's made it safer in so many ways. We don't have nearly as many forklifts running around the plant. We don't have trucks stacked outside waiting, jockeying for position in line. It's really been a fantastic addition to what we do here, and made us so much more efficient in the way we're loading out and sending products. So career-wise, when we look at the site, you really didn't get to see a lot of our folks, but pretty much any piece of business that you have interest in. I buy beans. I'm a merchant. So we have folks that are buying bushels, but then from the same time, somebody's got to pay for those. Somebody's got to manage the profit and loss piece of what we do in our finance team. Somebody has to figure out the strategy of when is it time to build a new crush plant. You have to look at out here, when are we going to run this oil product versus this oil product? So you've got your schedulers, you've got your salespeople, you got the people that are creating these labels and doing all of our marketing. You've got our lab folks that we've already talked about. You've got our engineers that are running our projects. you've got our logistic team that's trying to help get trucks out to where they need to go when they need to be there. You've got the folks that are actually running the business, the folks that are actually doing the work here at the site. And what's so great about Cargill is we want to promote from within. So we want you to come in. We want you to find a job in Cargill. And then you might say, hey, I'm working in the elevator right now, but you know what? I want to be a leadman on one of the lines out in packaging. And so we really love that opportunity to get people who can move around the site and fill positions that we have internally. As I said, we've got, around 270 people here. There's almost always a job open somewhere at the site. And then around Cargill, maybe you find that you don't want to live in Sydney, Ohio. You want to live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where our headquarters are. We have tons of opportunities there as well. We always encourage people, if you're interested in internships, make sure that you're getting, as soon as you go back to school in the fall, get your resume on cargill.com. If you're interested in a job with Cargill, make sure you're always checking that career center on cargill.com all the time and see what's out there and have your resume loaded so you can apply for different jobs as they come up.
One couple quick questions. How long does it take from the time a soybean is delivered until it's fully processed and the products leave the plant?
Yeah. So obviously, it kind of depends on if you're going out into a product like this or if you're going out just in a bulk oil or whatever. But honestly, about a day and a half. It
Okay.
really doesn't take long.
Okay. And what is your background?
I grew up on a grain farm in Hardin County. I went to Wilmington College and got an ag management degree. Ag communications actually is what I got. And then honestly, I started here when I was still a senior in college. Was very fortunate there was an opportunity available and I started right away. Cargill was willing to work with me around my school schedule. So it worked great. But the thing about it is you don't have to have an ag degree. If you're going to work in the lab, absolutely you've got to understand that. If you're going to be an engineer, you have to understand that. But we have a lot of positions where we just need somebody who has the energy, who has the drive, who has the initiative, who's willing to learn, those types of things. We can teach you what you need to know. You just got to want to do it.
Okay, very good. There are lots of research opportunities. I'm not sure I followed uh, in the soybean industry, there's a tremendous amount of research going on in all kinds of areas, not only in products, but new products made from
Yeah.
oil and soy protein.
Yeah.
The Ohio Soybean Council has its own laboratory that works on developing new soy-based products that aren't food related. There's lots of research on soybeans, plant genetics, insect resistance, herbicide resistance, engineers and precision agriculture, logistics and marketing, you name it, they're available. I know we're probably running out of time. With that, I would like to thank Andrea for taking us on a tour of the Sydney facility of Cargill. Thanks, Cargill, for making her available. We appreciate it. Thank you for the Ohio Department of Education for partnering with us on this virtual tour today. And with that, I think we are finished. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.